Welcome to the deep dive. We dig into sources for you, pull out the key stuff, basically give you the shortcut to knowing what's what.
Yeah, we take the material you're interested in, figure out the core ideas, and lay it all out. Make it make sense.
Exactly. And today, wow, we're tackling a classic, Albert Camus' The Stranger, or L'étranger. Specifically, the Matthew Ward translation.
Right. So our mission here is to really unpack the bits you shared, why this translation is important, Meursault's early actions, that whole trial sequence, and his final thoughts.
Basically, what makes this novel hit so hard, especially through Ward's lens?
It's this major work. It gets into big questions about meaning or the lack of it, all through this one guy.
So yeah, settle in. This is your tailored briefing on some seriously fascinating stuff. And hey, if you like what we do, maybe hit that subscribe button. Helps us out.
Definitely. Okay, let's get into it.
So first things first, why The Stranger? The notes call its impact profound, talks about the nakedness of man faced with the absurd. Heavy stuff right out of the gate.
It is. Camus is really stripping things down, asking what's left when you take away all the usual meanings, the societal stuff. And Meursault is our guide, like it or not.
Which brings us to Matthew Ward's 1988 translation. It's described as illuminating, praised for exactitude and clarity. Apparently, it gives the novel a new life, makes it feel more immediate.
And Ward himself, he wasn't exactly subtle about it. He said his version was different and better for Americans, aiming to make it our classic.
Yeah.
That's a bold claim.
Well, yeah, and it comes from how he saw Camus' style, especially in part one. He calls it the American method.
Right, influenced by writers like Hemingway, maybe Dos Passos, Faulkner.
Yeah.
That very direct clipped style, short sentences.
The character who seems ostensibly without consciousness, got a tough guy vibe almost. Ward wanted that American flavor.
His whole philosophy was this impossible fidelity, not just getting the gist, the meaning, but capturing the how, the exact words, the rhythm. He thought the meaning would sort of emerge from that.
You really see it in the examples, like Salamano and his dog. An older translation says something like, as usual, he had his dog with him. Pretty standard.
Yeah, but Ward puts it as, he was with his dog.
Seems tiny, right? But Ward argues it's crucial. It takes Meursault literally, like the dog is a companion, an equal in some weird way.
Ward felt it showed Meursault's unique perception, a psychological increment of character. It's seeing the world purely through his eyes.
And it clicks later, doesn't it? When Meursault thinks the dog is worth just as much as Salamano's wife. Preserving these unconventional thoughts is what Ward saw as key to the novel's startling originality.
It's amazing how one phrase can shift your whole reading of the narrator's mind. It really gets to the core of the book.
And the big one, obviously, the first sentence, used to be, "Mother died today." Very formal.
But Ward went with, "Maman died today."
Yeah, Maman.
Oh.
More intimate, maybe more childlike.
Ward actually pointed to Camus' own notebooks. Camus wrote something like, "The curious feeling the son has for his mother constitutes all his sensibility." And Sartre apparently noted Meursault's use of maman, too.
So Ward's argument is if you translate it as mother, you actually change Meursault's whole sensibility, that curious feeling, that one word choice is loaded.
Absolutely. It shows how deep Ward went, word by word, even though he also admitted, all translation is kind of a paraphrase. You're always reaching for something.
Right, that impossible fidelity. Okay, so moving from the translation itself to part one, the story, how does this style show us Meursault right away? The telegram arrives, mother deceased, funeral tomorrow.
And his thought, that doesn't mean anything. Maybe it was yesterday. Just, whoa.
Total detachment. Even the bus ride, the heat, falling asleep, it's all just reported factually.
And the mortuary scene. That's crucial.
Yeah.
The bright lights, the closed coffin, the caretaker offers to open it.
And Meursault just says, I don't know. Doesn't say no, just, I don't know.
Yeah, and the caretaker's like, I understand. Which is weirdly accepting, right? But then Meursault lights a cigarette, drinks coffee right there next to the coffin, thinks it didn't matter.
Individually, maybe okay, but together. It starts building this picture that, well, the court later jumps all over.
And the vigil with his mother's friends, he watched them so closely, like he's cataloging them. Aprons, canes, the wrinkles.
He gets that ridiculous feeling they're judging him.
And he's annoyed by the woman crying, wishes she'd stop. He even thinks, maybe wrongly, that his mother meant nothing to them. It shows this focus on the surface, the physical, not the expected emotion.
The funeral, too. It's all about the heat, the glare, his blood pounding. He notices Perez crying, the flowers, the blood-red earth. It's sensation, not sentiment.
And the very next day, Saturday, he's off to the beach, meets Marie.
Right, swimming, touching, very physical, then back to his place.
And Sunday is just Sunday. Stays in bed, cuts out ads, watches the street, his big conclusion.
One more Sunday was over, that my mom was buried now, that I was going back to work, and that really nothing had changed, just flat. Unbelievable.
His interactions really hammer it home. Marie asks if he loves her.
His answer. It didn't mean anything, but I didn't think so. Ouch.
Marriage.
Yeah.
It didn't matter. But if she wanted to, they could. Zero romance. Total indifference, it seems.
And he helps Raymond write that nasty letter to his mistress just because, well, why not? He says he didn't have any reason not to please him.
Raymond sees him as a pal, thinks men always understand each other, but they're worlds apart. Raymond's full of conventional anger, possessiveness.
And Raymond's take on Maman's death, one of those things that was bound to happen, just dismisses it.
Then there's Salamano, grieving for his lost dog. That peculiar little noise of him crying actually reminds Meursault of Mama.
But his advice, just get another dog.
Yeah.
He sort of gets, Salamano loved the dog. He even connects it to Mama somehow. Ran out of things to say. But his own response to loss is just different, alien almost.
All these little moments, they just stack up. They build this portrait of someone operating completely outside normal emotional rules.
Which sets up part 2 perfectly, the trial. This is where society gets its turn.
And it's immediately clear it's not just about the killing. The atmosphere Meursault notes the packed room feeling like an intruder, the press needing a story for the slow season.
It becomes the trial of his character, especially his behavior around Maman's death.
The prosecutor goes right there, gets the director to talk about Meursault's calm, how he didn't cry, didn't want to see the body.
The caretaker confirms it, the coffee, the cigarette.
And the prosecutor spins that gold. A stranger may offer a cup of coffee, but a son should have refused it. Bang! It's about the performance of grief.
Meursault even feels it then, that stirring in the room. He realizes for the first time that I was guilty. Guilty of what? Failing the grief test.
Yeah, guilty of not acting the part society wrote for him. Even Perez fainting becomes evidence about whether Meursault looked sad enough. Did he cry? Did anyone see him not cry?
It's absurd. Some witnesses try to help, right? Celeste calls him honest, says it was bad luck.
Salamano tries to explain about putting Maman in the home, pleads for understanding, but it doesn't matter.
Nope. The prosecution has its narrative, and the closing argument, brutal.
Calls him a monster, a man without morals, says he buried his mother with crime in his heart.
Connects the funeral directly to the murder. A profound, fundamental, and tragic relationship. It's all about the emptiness of a man's heart.
And that line, says Meursault's callousness, inspired in him a horror nearly greater than that which he felt at the crime of parricide. Wow.
Think about that. Society is more horrified by his lack of feeling, or perceived lack of feeling, than by the fact he killed someone.
And Meursault's reaction while they're saying all this, he's bored, astonished, feels the utter pointlessness of it all.
Yeah, he just wants to go back to his cell. Sleep. He's completely detached from this whole drama about his soul.
So the guilty verdict almost feels like an afterthought. The real sentence was passed on his character long before. His lawyer even says he antagonized the jury.
By just being himself, basically. By not playing the game.
Which leads to the end. Meursault, facing execution, he refuses the chaplain, right? Wants nothing to do with the machinery of justice.
He thinks about the death penalty with that same cold logic. No chance. A fixed arrangement. A tacit agreement.
He even critiques the guillotine's efficiency, says it's wrong, the condemned has to hope it works properly, calls it the secret of good organization, still analyzing the mechanics, even of his own death.
But something shifts, doesn't it? He starts finding little comforts, remembers Maman saying, you can always find something to be happy about.
Yeah, he thinks about appeal, but then just accepts it. If life isn't really worth living in the grand sense, and everyone dies eventually.
When and how don't matter. So accepting his death sentence becomes perfectly normal.
And then the chaplain forces the issue, that final confrontation. Meursault isn't in despair, he says, just afraid, which is natural.
He's totally indifferent to God. Tells the chaplain straight up, when you die, and nothing remains. His answer is just yes.
The chaplain pities him, calls his soul hardened, talks about seeing divine faces.
But Meursault's reality is the stones he's been staring at. He looked from Marie's face, saw nothing. just stone.
And then he just explodes, grabs the chaplain, yelling, pouring it all out. Anger, joy, everything.
Calls the chaplain a dead man, someone not even sure he's alive. But Meursault, he is sure.
I was sure about me, about everything. Sure of my life and sure of the death I had waiting for me. Total certainty.
It feels like he's won, somehow. Nothing mattered, and he gets it. That dark wind from the future makes everything equal.
After they drag the chaplain away, he calms down, exhausted, wakes up later, sees the stars, feels this wondrous peace.
The world outside, the sirens, it means nothing to him now. He thinks about Mama again, near her death, how she seemed ready to live it all again.
And he feels the same. He says his blind rage had washed me clean, rid me of hope, which sounds bleak, but for him,
It's freedom. He opens himself to the gentle indifference of the world.
finds it so much like myself, so like a brother, really, and feels happy. I felt that I had been happy and that I was happy again. It's this radical peace found in meaninglessness.
And that final, chilling wish
Yeah, for a big crowd at his execution, greeting him with cries of hate.
to feel less alone, he says. It's the ultimate confirmation of his break with society, embracing its hate as validation of his own truth.
Wow. So yeah, that's our run through The Stranger via the Ward translation. Meursault's detachment, society's judgment, and that final strange acceptance.
Looking at it through Ward's specific choices really brings out how Camus built this character, who just fundamentally challenges how we think about feeling, about meaning.
It absolutely does. It forces you to ask uncomfortable questions.
Like, what does it say about us, about society, that we're potentially more freaked out by someone not performing grief correctly than by violence itself? What does that need for conformity, for emotional performance, reveal?
Or just wrestling with Meursault's ending. Is it peace? Is it despair, wearing a different mask? Is it just acceptance of the absurd? There's no easy answer there.
Definitely not. It sticks with you. Well, that's our deep dive for today. Thanks for joining us as we unpacked Camus The Stranger. Hope it gave you some new angles on a complex book.
Yeah, thanks for listening.